So I'm going to go ahead and introduce the Ingleside communities. Many of you are likely familiar with our organization and you've participated in educational events previously. I thank you for joining us today, and I just want to introduce myself and what I do at Ingleside. I'm our community's team member, specifically supporting families who want to move directly into our assisted living or our memory support assisted living residential spaces. We do have the full continuum, independent, assisted, and skilled nursing care on our campuses. But because this is such a unique area, I'm our team member who specifically supports with that. So we are going to be looking at all three of our communities. I just want to introduce you to them. So Ingleside at Rock Creek, our flagship community, dates back to the early 1900s, formerly known as the Presbyterian Home for Widows. So that's right there in Northwest DC. Again, also a life plan community. So independent, assisted, and skilled, all on one campus. We do have our memory support program at that community as well. Westminster at Lake Ridge in Lake Ridge, Virginia. That community is about 30 years old, early 90s. And again, full continuum, also a social day program. So we're able to offer, we call it Ingleside Engaged, and this is a non-medical social day program for people who are part of the community and external. So that's a wonderful opportunity if you're in that area and need those services. And then Ingleside at King Farm, the baby sister of the three communities in Rockville, Maryland, opened in 2009. Ingleside at King Farm, also a life plan community, also has Ingleside Engaged, our social day program on this campus. And so again, that's a non-medical social opportunity for individuals with neurocognitive change, a form of dementia, whether they've been diagnosed or not. If there's those memory changes and there's a recommendation to participate in that social day program, that's available at Ingleside at King Farm. So I want to share with you what's currently available in our residential assisted living program at each of the three communities. And so as we all know, this can change and fluctuate day to day, but currently we have in our memory support assisted living program at Ingleside at Rock Creek one floor plan. It's our oak floor plan. It's a standard studio. There's a few pictures here of that size. And then at Westminster at Lake Ridge, we have our standard studio in assisted living. And then at Ingleside at King Farm, we have a 1-bedroom, 1-bath apartment in our traditional assisted living. And then we have our standard studio in our memory support assisted living. So that's what's currently available. I also want to just share with you something that we're able to offer as we have availability, and that's our respite program. And so if you are considering a move to a community, but you'd like a chance to trial that community, respite would be an option. Or maybe you're traveling or you need some extended time to care for yourself. And so you're saying, you know what, I need my loved one to be cared for in a setting. We offer this at a 30-day stay, so a trial stay or respite program that's available in our memory support residences at both Ingleside at King Farm and Ingleside at Rock Creek. And our social day program at both Westminster at Lake Ridge and Ingleside at King Farm. Again, this is an opportunity just about a little shorter than business hours, Monday through Friday, for your loved one to be in an environment where they are doing exercise, they're doing art therapy, they're doing music therapy. It's this full day of engagement with other individuals who are also experiencing neurocognitive changes. So there are conversations that are stimulating and social interactions that are supported by team members who are trained as dementia practitioners. And lastly, I do want to share what's coming up next in our educational series at Ingleside. We are going to be hosting Melanie Chadwick from the Georgetown University Memory Disorders Clinic. She's one of the nurse practitioners there, and she'll be just sharing with us the current treatments and FDA-approved medications for Alzheimer's disease. So that is on May 3rd at 11 a.m. That's also virtual. So no matter where you are, no matter which of our communities you're closest to, you can join us for this virtual event. My contact information, I showed you a few pictures today of currently available apartments. If you want to reach out about that or our respite program or our social day program, you are welcome to text or call that number, the 202-489-1416. And I'd be happy to bring you out to the community and show you whichever property is closest to you. So Marianne, I'm going to pass it over to you. I'm going to pull up your slides. And we're excited to hear from you today. For those of you who are not familiar with Marianne and her work, she is with Corwood They have both a caregiver and a care management side to their agency. And many people don't know that they're able to provide both of those services. Marianne is an experienced care manager with a background in social work. And so it'll be really helpful to hear from you today about managing that burden that can be caregiving. I'm going to pull up your slides and pass it over to you.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Kirsten, and everyone at the Inglesides for having me be a part of this. I'm honored. Certainly, caregiving is something near and dear to me. As a social worker, I've been working with older adults for about the past 30 years, and I have learned much from people that I've worked with, and the various needs that go along with caregiving and really what caregiving is like, which prompted Kirsten and I to have a great conversation and me to come up with this program, because caregiving really is a juggle. The other way I like to think about caregiving is that you pretty much have to be ready, whatever stage of life you are in, whether you're the adult child or the grandchild or the spouse of somebody that needs care. It's almost like you have to be ready to become the CEO of the company, and the company's goal and mission is to take care of Bob or Betty or Sue or whatever your loved one's name is, because it really requires a lot of juggling, a lot of time and energy on your behalf to make it work. Certainly, there's numerous positive aspects about caregiving. We're going to go through a little bit of everything. But first of all, I want to take the time and just thank Kirsten for letting us know about respite care. As a care manager and a social worker over the years, I have recommended respite care for people. So just keep that in mind. Is a wonderful opportunity where you can have your family member try out living in a community. It's 30 days. See what things are like, the activities, the schedule, the food, the environment, the care, everything. You can try it out for 30 days. Excuse me. Of course, that's a great time for the spouse who's giving the care to either go on that trip that they're looking forward to do, or maybe to have a surgery they've been putting off, or to just get some rest and regroup. And then I'm very much excited about the Ingleside Memory Day program as well, because that is a key support that we'll be talking about as we go through this juggle of all the things you do. And how can you do that? Because our goal for this presentation is to prioritize your health. And I've got 30 years of getting to meet older adults and their adult children who don't prioritize their health because they're giving care. Certainly decrease your stress, because we know that providing care can be stressful. And how do you build that support network so you're not the only one in this caregiving role? So, so those are the things we're going to be going through. I think, as Kirsten said, though, you can put, you can put chats or questions in the chat box, and she will let me know about those, I think, at the end of the meeting. But let me get a drink of water first, and then we'll get started with the next slide. For our purpose here today, we're calling you, if you do any research about caregivers, we are going to be calling ourselves or yourselves an informal caregiver, meaning you're not getting paid to be a caregiver. So this is generally a family member, a neighbor, somebody who provides care to a family member in need. And other words you're going to hear maybe if you do some reading or the doctor makes some mention of ADLs. What are those ADLs that they're talking about that your family member may need help with now or in the future? Those are the activities of daily living. So that's bathing, dressing, toileting. They say transferring, and that means getting in and out of the bed, in and out of the chair, from the wheelchair to bed, those kinds of things. Eating, and managing incontinence. Caregivers often then move to helping their family member with IADLs. So that would be using the phone. Maybe they're not able to use the phone. So now you're making all the phone calls, scheduling the doctor's appointments, answering the phone when family calls. You're also doing all the shopping, whether it's grocery shopping, maybe getting shoes or new pants or socks or pajamas. You're preparing meals, you're making snacks, you're cleaning up, making sure that your family member takes their medications, you're managing all the finances, and you are providing or using transportation. Oftentimes I see this with couples where they've been married for 30, 40, 50 years, and they really had this nice balance as a couple, right? So the husband had these duties, the wife had these duties, and they really worked together as a great team. And they split certain duties between themselves. Often that was based on their strengths. Now, let's say one of the spouses has cognitive impairment or an illness and is not able to do that, then all of those duties switch over to the other spouse. So there's no surprise why we talk about this as being overwhelming and stressful, because for many, many years, they didn't have to do it all. They shared those duties, and maybe they're not really good with managing finances. And so now they have to manage those finances. I'm going to give some examples or some little stories that are completely anonymous, but just to give you an idea of what I've been witness to as an example of the hard work and dedication of caregivers. There was a gentleman once that complained to me that his wife's bathroom, or the toilet in her bathroom, always plugged up. He didn't know why. He wasn't using that bathroom. She had dementia. He called a plumber, and the plumber did whatever he needed to do and pulled out several bras from the toilet. I asked him the simple question, did she have toilet paper in the bathroom that she uses all the time? And he said no. So she was trying to do her best, and she was using bras that she had to clean herself up. So that made him realize that he needed to be in the bathroom with her during toileting and cleaning up. But that was her way of solving the issue. And it didn't occur to him to restock the bathroom toilet paper. It's understandable. So there's, again, my point is there's a lot that goes into this. Okay, so we'll go to the next slide. But caregivers do more than what I just said on that first slide, right? There's so much more that goes into things. Not only are you scheduling medical appointments, you're keeping the calendar, you're speaking with the professionals, you're talking with the pharmacist, you're juggling those appointments. You're the advocate at the medical appointment. If your family member has some cognitive impairment, as Kirsten mentioned earlier, you are their advocate, and oftentimes you become their historian. You become the person that's able to say when a certain symptom started, when they started a certain medication, when you started noticing certain behaviors. So all of that falls on you as the caregiver to now be not only the advocate, but the historian. I mentioned earlier, grocery shopping, preparing the meals. Caregivers also, if you don't have cleaning help, you're cleaning the house, you're doing lawn maintenance, you're managing the home repairs. I see this oftentimes. And sometimes people overlook the home repairs. That's understandable because the world has suddenly gotten so much busier than it had been. The car needs repair. Certainly cars need new tires, oil changes, those kinds of things. Paying bills, managing finances, paying taxes. Over the years, I've certainly met a lot of clients with mild cognitive impairment who were single or widowed or divorced, and they're living alone. Come to find out they hadn't paid taxes in years. That was just not part of what they did, or due to the cognitive impairment, they just were not able to focus on that. So there's a lot. And then I said, in many and more, because there's a lot more that you do as caregivers. And then let's just add the context of caring for someone with dementia. I always like to put a little bit of statistics in my presentations. It kind of helps me. I hope it helps you. Just to know that caregivers who are providing care for someone with dementia or Alzheimer's, on an average, right? Because it could be definitely more than this, provide 1 to 4 years more care than caregivers who are caring for someone with a medical illness. This to me highlights the need of also, as we go through this presentation, and you know that Inglesides are sponsoring this, that they've got memory care support for you. Because this caring for somebody with memory loss, dementia, Alzheimer's, the different forms of dementia, is a longer time span. And so I'm glad that you're able to find out about the programs or the services that they offer as well. There is an estimated 15.7 million adults who are caregivers for a family member with Alzheimer's disease or other dementias. My guess, that was a couple years ago, and my guess that number could be so much more than that estimate. So for those of you who are in it, or those of you who are touched by this, you understand the impact that it has. Okay. So let's say a few things. Let's talk about the rewards, because caregiving has many rewards. It does give you times. It allows you to spend time with your family member. It allows you to care for someone who cared for you if you're an adult child. My own story is my mother is 93. She lives alone in Ohio, where I've got 2 sisters that visit her frequently. I'm the family member who calls her almost every day. And as a social worker, she's known to tell me things that she doesn't tell my sisters because she doesn't want to worry them. Like she feels like she has pneumonia. That was one phone call. Sorry, my light turned off in here. Little does she know I have a group text with my sisters, so I keep us all engaged. But my mother also showed me, the last bullet on the page is, my mother modeled behavior for me about caring for a family member. Her father died of emphysema. He did not want to go to any senior living community, and this was 40, 50 years ago. They're much different now. And she and her sister took care of him. So when I'd come home from college, I would drive over there and assist her, and knew that she was, of the two sisters, she was the only one that could give him a bed bath. He would only, and this will have something to do with as we go through the presentation, she would allow, my papa would allow my mom to give him a bed bath, but not his other daughter. So, but I learned then what it was like to care for a family member and how my mom did what she could for him to make that happen. Caregiving is sometimes a promise you make to family members. You know, I will care for you for the rest of your life. We'll talk a little bit more about that because sometimes those promises that we make are difficult to keep. But knowing that you promise that you will care for them doesn't always mean that you have to do it all for them. It may be unrealistic. If you are a couple and you're both in your late 80s, I think it's very hard and very concerning to me that you think that you're able to care for a spouse 24/7. But I know that caring for a family member is part of your value systems, which is great, but we need to be realistic about what we can and cannot do. And caring can take so many different forms, right? So that's a little bit about how we care for families. I one time got to know a woman whose husband died of frontal lobe dementia, and she had great stories and great memories. And one of the stories she shared with me is that her husband could not stand her singing voice, would never let her sing songs in the house from, you know, the generation that they grew up. And she said one of the things he liked to do as his dementia progressed was to take a ride in the car. And one time she turned on the radio and it was a song from when they were in college, and she just started singing it and he sang with her. He was losing the ability to speak in sentences, but that memory of days gone by when they were in college, he remembered the song, and he never once told her not to sing with him. So she said, you know, the high point is that her caregiving is when his memory decreased, his love of her singing voice increased. So she's got that great memory that they drove around singing at the top of their lungs to whatever rock music from way back when that he enjoyed, and she could sing with them. So it has those rewards, doesn't it? The next slide is caregiving can also be, as we talked about, it can be overwhelming. You know, sometimes when I work with families, and I know I've met many spouses who have said that they're going to care for their spouse or partner and they're going to do it alone, and that's what they feel like they need to do. Sometimes I have to wonder if I offered that husband or wife or partner a full-time job at their age. Let's say I came to them and said, okay, I'm offering you a full-time job. It's 5 days a week, Monday through Friday from 9 to 5. And let's say you're 80 or 85. Would you want that job? Most people would say, no, that's a little bit too much for me. I'm retired. I don't want to do that at this point in my life. And then what if I said, well, because the job I'm offering you right now is Monday through Friday, 9 to 5, but in about a year's time or so, it's going to be 7 days a week, and it's going to be 24 hours a day. Would you accept that job? I think I say these things to people to just open their eyes, be realistic, my goal is always to get them to accept help, because the last thing I want to have happen is the caregiver spouse or partner gets sick. So that's why sometimes you talk about it in different ways so that you can see the magnitude of it. And oftentimes our family members decline or need help slowly. It's not a drastic one day you wake up and they can't feed themselves or they lost their memory like that. No, it's gradual. So I understand that this is gradual and you are then stepping gradually into the caregiver role. But at some point I want this caregiver spouse to realize that it's a lot, and to help your spouse partner and to help you is for you to have some help. I've spoken with plenty of people who feel stressed. Sometimes they feel angry. That's okay. That's your feeling that you have. They feel frustrated. They feel depleted. There's an increase in anxiety. Am I going to be able to get Bob out the door in time to get to the doctor's appointment because he has a hard time getting in and out of the car, or I don't know how he's going to wake up, if he's going to be in pain, if he's got a walker or wheelchair, am I going to be able to get it into the car by myself? It's getting heavier for me. Difficulty sleeping because of the anxiety. You're noticing some depression. Everything kind of looks gray. And then the caregiver is noticing some health issues. All that stress and anxiety and lack of sleep, you are now compromised your immune system. You can't live that long in that heightened lack of sleep. Maybe you're not eating as well anymore, and so your health starts going down. You're also oftentimes having difficulty concentrating in things. Maybe it's because your spouse does have memory issues, and so you're always keeping an eye on your spouse, making sure they're safe, making sure they're not walking out the door, making sure they're not turning on the stove, so that when you do have time to yourself, you can't remember what you were doing, or you can't really concentrate, of course, doing the taxes because you've been this heightened sense of awareness for their safety. I put in here burnout. This is real for caregivers. This is a very real condition. The definition of it is a state of physical, emotional, and mental exhaustion. And if you look at some of the things that I listed in the slide, many of those things are the exact same words that are used if I was to look up in the diagnostic manual for mental health issues, and if I looked up depression, you would see some of these exact same words in there. So I am very concerned about spouses, partners, adult children who are caring. You're at risk at burnout. So we need to make sure you take care of yourself. And that moves into the next slide. So first on the list is we want you to be able to prioritize your health. Okay. That was one of my care managers. I just had to look at that. I don't know how many of you have heard the title, you can't pour from an empty cup. The first bullet point is something similar to that. If you don't take care of yourself, how can you take care of anyone else? Another example I like to use for this, if any of you have been on airplanes and they're talking to you about if something happens to the cabin pressure, there goes my light again. If something happens to your cabin pressure, you're going to have the oxygen come down. If you're traveling with a small child, you need to put the oxygen on first and then put it on the small child. That's the same thing. that you have to take care of yourself, because if you don't get your oxygen on, how can you help put on the oxygen of a small child, or somebody that you're traveling with? So I know that adds another thing to your list, and hopefully we'll get a good discussion when we talk with each other. But you really have to prioritize your medical appointments. When you go to the doctor, please let the doctor, nurse practitioner, everybody in the doctor's office that greets you and talks to you about your weight or your blood pressure, you are in a caregiver role. That speaks volumes to them, and that's important that they should know. Don't underestimate that. Don't just think, oh, well, I'm taking care of Bob or Sue. Let them know that that's what you're doing. Eat a well-balanced, healthy diet, drink plenty of water, make sure, and we'll talk more about this, make sure to get a good night's sleep, get some exercise, and of course, do things that bring you joy. We'll talk more about that, but you have to find a way to rejuvenate yourself, whether it's going out with a friend, whether it's going out with a family member, whether it's taking a walk. I don't know if you play bridge or you like to garden, whatever it is, you still need that in your life. So that's it for prioritizing your health. That has to be at the top of the list. So how can you just decrease your stress? First and foremost, accept help. I know working with older adults over the years, a lot of people, I could be one of them, it's not easy for us to accept help. I know many reasons why. We won't talk about that during this one, but we feel like we should be able to handle everything. But that's part of what I want to talk to you about today is we can't always do it all. We're not super people. So accept help, but also be specific in what kind of help you want. I'm always telling people to ask their family members. And my response I always hear is, my grown children are busy. Look, we're all busy. Sometimes I think we say the word busy when we're really not busy. I don't know why we think we all have to be busy. But you are the person or persons that raised this adult child, or you helped take care of their child. This is what families do. So be very specific. If a neighbor casually says to you, well, if you ever need any help, let me know. Call them back or say to them then, could you bring my trash cans in and take my trash cans out every garbage day? That's when I'm helping Bob in the shower or something like that. Ask for the help. That's easy for them to do. And do you know, if you were to ask me for help and I did it for you, that improves my brain health. Doing something for somebody releases the good chemicals in the brain. So think of it as you're actually helping that person when you allow them to help you. Be realistic in what you can and cannot do. I think that's very important. You can't do it all. Let go of whatever guilt you have that you should be able to do everything. Take the word should out of your vocabulary. We all have to come together and help. It takes a village, and there's a variety of definitions of a village. Ingleside will show you that. You could take a tour and see what assistance they do offer and how it takes so many people, right, to put all of that together. You will see people who provide activities, people who do the laundry, people who do housekeeping, caregivers who help people take showers and brushing teeth and washing hair and things. They know there's a lot that goes into this. They can be your village. You can maintain that family relationship with your family member and still care by sitting next to them and reminiscing or doing things like that. But helping them getting in and out of the shower or in and out of a chair may be too much for your back. The next thing we talk about is hiring help. By all means, consider this. You could start with hiring a home care provider who can come into the house 1 day a week for 4 hours, or all the way up to 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You can hire people to clean your home. There are people that do daily money management. They could come to the house once or twice a month and sit beside you and make sure you balance your checkbook, assist you with that, pay bills, things like that. Certainly, about lawn care. But nowadays, there's so many services that you can have to help you with that. It's important you stay connected with your friends. Friends are wonderful. Find those friends that let you share your emotions. Find those friends that will say, let's go get a cup of coffee and laugh. Other things you can do, we'll talk about this a little bit later too, is join a support group. And then also seek counseling. I think what we learned through the pandemic is that we can do a lot by Zoom on our iPads or computers. Certainly medical care, and also a lot of counselors are doing counseling that way. So you don't have to leave your home. You could seek counseling. Other things to think about, if you could seek counseling, I don't know if you're a member of a religious organization, check there to see if there's anybody that does more of a pastoral care or a spiritual or religious counseling, if that's important to you. So I just want you to know there's lots of options out there for you. And I know it's going to take a little bit of time to put this together in terms of a schedule and what can help, but we'll get to that coming up next. So what you really want to do is to build a support network. And in order to do that, you have to have some type of family meeting. And certainly you can talk, I don't know how many children you have or friends that you have or things like that, but you can do it one-on-one with them. But I think at some point it would be helpful to have a family meeting to talk openly about the support you need, what you need now, and how that will change over time. I think adult children need to know what that looks like. I think I've met over the years, many adult children think that mom and dad are always going to be mom and dad and can do everything. And that's not the case. I'll share another personal example is that several years ago, my mother-in-law fell and fractured her hip. She's got 6 sons and they live in Ohio. And I was asking somebody about Thanksgiving dinner, one of her sons, and he told me, yep, we're all going to mom's house. Her husband, their father, had passed away by this time, and that she said she was cooking the turkey. And I said, okay, but she's using a walker and she's not been cleared from physical therapy to not use the walker. How is she going to cook a turkey and all of the side dishes? And they said, well, I don't know. Mom just does it all. And I'm like, yeah, not safe to pull a 20-pound turkey out of a stove when you're using a walker. So sometimes we just need to open the eyes of the adult children and say, I just can't do everything anymore. I really do need support and I need help this way. I recommend, certainly we talked a little bit about this, is looking at the strengths of the family members to assign the tasks. I think if you've got a family member who's in the medical field, nurse, doctor, My daughter's a physical therapist. She's my medical power of attorney. I think I chose well. Assign tasks to people where their strengths are. I tend to go back to Ohio and clip my mom's toenails because my two sisters can't do that. That's fine. I'm the toenail clipper. We help in ways that we can and what we're good with. And they're near her, and I live 450 miles away. So those are some of the things that I do as a long distance family member. So don't discount the long distance family members. When we come into town, you could say, it's my time, I'm going to take a couple days away because I've been caring for mom while you've been, you live in Maryland, something like that. They can actually, the long distance family members could be people that once they know the schedule, they could be making doctor's appointments. They could put together a caregiving schedule. They could be the one that calls the neighbor or somebody at the church or synagogue for what kind of help they could do. They could reach out to people. This works really well. I think my text group that we have with the neighbor that lives next door to my mom in Ohio, it's a husband and wife who are also kind of like our brother and sister because they look after my mom. We're on a text together. They're also supporting her. So we're texting away, keeping that loop closed, and they're very good at doing things for her. So there's things that I can do from a distance that I know I can relieve my sisters of. And again, I'm going to say it over again, be clear in your communication. I need help, and this is the way I need some help. I set up group emails and texts to keep each other's updated. Let's keep everybody in the loop. I think feelings get hurt from adult children or whatever family member if they're not up to date on things. So might as well get that group text with your parents' permission. But those are conversations to have. A couple years ago, I went with my mom after she had a pacemaker, and I told her she wanted me to drive her to see her primary care physician. And I said, may I meet her? You would have thought I said, can I meet her and tell her everything about you? Which isn't what I said. She got very upset with me and told me, no, she didn't want me to meet with her primary care doctor. And I said, I understand you seem upset about that, but I want to remind you that I'm your medical power of attorney. And while I'm here, if in the future something happens to you, your primary care doctor is going to call me. And I think it would be better if she and I just had a face-to-face and I could introduce myself, because I'm going to be on the other end of the phone if she calls, if you're in the hospital. I think it would serve her well, and it would make me feel better. And we're both together on the same page helping you. So sometimes things are met with resistance. That's understandable. But just working through that, saying, this is the support. This is the team we're putting together. And we all want to help. You've done so much for us. I say delegate tasks, and I say ask the younger generation. They could put the care schedule together. I'm sure my 12-year-old granddaughter can put something together on a computer better than I can. She is known to text my mom and talk with her great grandmother. So don't discount the other generations and the things that they can do as well. So you're building this good, strong care team for you and for your family member. Next are conversations and planning. So I'm just going to do some of the key points here. Home care providers, those are usually certified nursing assistants, and they can provide the hands-on cares, like I said, as well as light housekeeping. There is in Montgomery County adult medical day centers. Those are for people who can't take their medication on their own, and they're going to be there and have medication administered, and they need help with hygiene. They need help using the bathroom. Social day program, Ingleside Engaged, as well as senior living communities, which Ingleside, offers the independent living, the assisted living, and the memory care. I always recommend people review their power of attorney. If my spouse has dementia and I know that he is my power of attorney, I need to redo the power of attorney. It's not fair for him, nor at some point he won't be able to make medical decisions on my behalf or financial decisions. So as much as I want that I will be his power of attorney, he'll be mine. It's just not, he's not able to take on that task. Look over your advanced directives and make sure that what you put in there, I don't know, 3, 5, 15 years ago, make sure that's really what you want, as well as the living will, as well as your will. Just always, most attorneys recommend getting them out every 3 to 5 years and taking a look at them. The other thing I notice with people, adult children oftentimes don't know if their parents have long-term care insurance. They don't know where the policy is. Let your adult children or people that are close in your life that you trust, let them know where that policy is. Get it out, dust the dust, get the dust off of it and kind of look at it. I just heard recently about a client who's not a client of ours yet, but the wife told me that her husband had dementia, and she took care of him, and he passed away recently, and he had a wonderful long-term care policy through the federal government, and she never used it. He died before she decided to open it, and I guarantee you she could have opened it and had help in the home to help him and to help her. So talk about long-term care policies and look them over. In reviewing finances, if that's something you are uncomfortable doing and not really good at doing, consider consulting a financial planner. If you have an accountant, a tax advisor, all of those things as you're moving into this different stage of life, and you're going to have expenses, whether it's maybe moving into a senior community or doing a day program or having help in the home. These are times to have this good financial expert advice, because things may be different from the last time you were doing taxes or the last time you were managing your finances. So that's something to think about. And then the last page is really just some resources. I mentioned, doing something for family members. Sue's going to go visit mom and dad on Tuesdays from this time frame. You can do that on your own. Or there is an organization called Caring Bridge. Years ago, a friend of mine whose husband had cancer was in the hospital, and she put this together. Is also a way to communicate who was ever in her group. So while they were at Hopkins and he was going through cancer treatments, she did this. It was a great way to keep in touch with her and know how I could help her, because she did the same update for us. So we knew what kind of things she needed. There is something called a Well Spouse Association. It's a nationwide listing of support groups and newsletters. By all means, the Alzheimer's Association has a 24/7 helpline. that you can call or you can go online. They're a wealth of knowledge. In Montgomery County, there's an aging and disability resource unit for you to call. I am a member of Aging Life Care Association. If you think that a care manager, there's plenty in Montgomery County or DC, Virginia, wherever you live. If you wanted the benefit of a professional to kind of guide you and walk you through all these steps, just know that there's somebody out there that can do that for you. So I think I'm good with the time, Kirsten. How are we doing? I'm gonna get a drink of water while you. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, no, you've done wonderfully and actually took us right up until about 10 minutes of 3.
Okay.
And so that does give us a chance to answer some questions. So please do type your question either in the chat or the Q&A. And I'm thinking actually it may be helpful. I might go back a few slides and just to some of the, I think, what I would call a call to action, right? What are some of the things that we can do? Because I think this may generate some conversation. Let me see where the one I thought just was. So this one for decreasing your stress, staying connected with friends. I think about some of who said, you know, I'm so glad I moved in to a community where there were other women. It happened in this case to be other widows who've already gone through something like this, and they were able to come around me, and I was already friends with them, and I wasn't facing this on my own. I remember hearing that and thinking, wow, okay, you know what, that's something I never thought about, but making those friends in essence before you need those friends.
Yes.
And so I thought, wow, you know, that's something I thought about at the time and thought how special that is in a community setting. But joining a support group, Ingleside has a couple support groups, and people who are not even part of our communities participate in those support groups. Counseling, I think at this point, all of us could use so, yeah, some professional counseling for the different things that we've gone through. But just, I thought this was a very helpful slide. So let me see one of the questions that we have here in the chat. And it's just a comment. Networking can make or break you. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Yeah, and I think that's something you said here as well, not just asking for the help, but being specific. And I've noticed that as well. I'll be, I even can do this, and I think I'm hopefully getting better. Having my own child helps me get better at this. But I used to say, you know, well, reach out if you need anything. And that's so generic and really not helpful. So instead, now that I've gone through something that was challenging, I can say, well, I'm going to bring you a meal on this day.
Yes.
Let me know if there's allergies. Otherwise, you know, XYZ showing up at your door. So I think just being specific and telling people, you know, a meal would be great, or taking the garbage bins out to the curb, or, you know, just think about those things that would be specific and helpful.
Yes. Yeah, those are all great points, for sure. And, you know, there's a while back, even before the pandemic, I did a presentation and did some research on loneliness, you know, and there are studies that show for older adults, there was a study that showed who they really felt. It's always really the quality of the relationship, not the quantity. You know, if somebody comes over 5 days a week or something, but older adults in a study said that it was really the quality. And there was a study that showed that the majority of the older adults questioned had said that their peer group, meaning their friends, people their own age, they felt they got more out of it than family members. And I'm just saying that because Kirsten said something was interesting, because when you do move into Ingleside, you may meet somebody who is in your age group who's been through something. And when they say, I've been there, I understand you, you know, let's have a cup of coffee, and you're sharing that, you've got that similar experience, and that can be very, very helpful to do that. So yeah, I mean, I guess if you ask Kirsten or I, we would both say people that we know that's moved in to senior communities, the vast majority say, I wish I would have come sooner. I've found people I can talk to. I'm active, more active than I used to be, but it's doing things that I like to do. and things like that. So you've got a lot of people there that live there that understand you.
Mhm. Another comment in the chat that we don't have to rely just on family. And so that help that we reach out to doesn't have to be your family of origin. That can be the family that you create for yourself, or those
Yes,
that you meet when you live in a community, or your neighbors. So yeah, that's a great point.
that is so true. Thank you for saying that. Yeah, it made me think about that when I was talking about my mom's neighbors. They know they know they're our family, but they're next door neighbors. But they trust me, they're angels. They are so good. Yeah, it doesn't have to be a blood relationship. It can be, yeah, special people in your life.
Well, Marianne, you are so helpful and informative as
Oh, good.
always. What I'll do is I will share the link to this recording today, as well as the slides with all of our attendees. And if there's someone that you invited that wasn't able to attend, you'll be able to share that link with them. So thanks for spending a portion of your afternoon with
Thank you.
Marianne and myself.
Yeah, enjoy the weather. I
All
hear
right.
it's hot.
Thank you all.
Sure. Bye-bye.